I've recently had the Porsche Sports Exhaust replaced on my 981 Boxster GTS. Now the internet loves the sound of the 981, naturally aspirated flat 6 and all that. But what does it actually sound like on the GTS? And what's the best way to record it? Let's find out. Welcome back to the channel, welcome back to Project 981. Now the internet loves the sound of the 981's naturally aspirated flat 6 engine, whether in base, S or GTS guys. There's no particulate filter, so it still screams under load. But how easy is it to record that? And what does it actually sound like from the car versus what we hear on YouTube? With my newly replaced PSE, I'm going to try and find out, is it simply a matter of sticking a microphone over the exhaust tips and going for a hoon? Or is there a bit more to it than that? So let's take a slightly deeper dive into recording car audio, and we'll make a start with a cold start. Well, here we are in sunny Aldwick on the south coast of the United Kingdom, and we're going to do a cold start on the Boxster with the new PSE installed, and we're going to use a directional mic for that rather than the microphone on my phone, or indeed taping anything to the back of the car. So I'll show you that in a short moment, and we'll see what that sounds like. The car's been sat overnight, very definitely cold, and we'll get the full beans. And what I'll do when I start the car, the valves will be open briefly. I'll then press the PSE button to keep them open. So we'll just get the sound of the car with those valves open, and then it's settling down to idle. As any sound recordists would tell you, we need to get our levels right before we start, and conveniently we have a very tasty Jaguar to hand with a fruity supercharged V8, so we're going to just fire that up, get the levels right, and then do the GTS. Excellent, so the levels are now set on the external microphone. We're dumping it onto an SD card on a solid state recorder thing, which I'll show you later on. So let's start up the GTS. So we only get to do this once. I've set the camera up, and what you'll hear next is the audio from the big external microphone. Right, so let's have a look at the kit we're going to use to record this. My good friend Stephen is with us. Morning, Stevie.
Morning.
So what have we got in front of us, and how does it all work?
So we've got a solid state recorder.
Yep.
With an SD card. Back in the day we used to use non-solid state recorders, which would be problematic in a racing car, of course,
yes,
because of the G-forces.
Yes.
But with a solid state machine, SD card, no moving parts, all fine, you just strap it down and it works.
Brilliant.
So as you can see, we can record two sources
Yep.
from external microphones. So we've got both plugged in.
Okay.
We've got our very good friend, the DPA 4063, which is a specialist microphone, originally for instruments, miking things like trumpets up really close.
Oh, really?
But we use these in the games industry and the film industry to record very loud sources.
Okay.
You can chuck huge amounts of volume at them,
Which
like exhaust pipes.
Yeah,
etc.
which you get from being close up to loud exhaust.
So with this microphone, I've recorded so many different racing cars and supercars over the years for games.
Yeah.
As you can see, very, very, very small microphone.
Yes, okay, that is teeny. It's like a Lavalier, really, isn't it?
It is.
Teeny.
So that means we can get it right inside the engine bay, right up to the tailpipes. I've even recorded the quad turbo intakes of Pagani Huayra with this.
Wow.
So, and it's got a very, very thin cable, which means
useful.
we can strap it down. It's all brilliant.
Good.
In there, in this furry dead cat, no offence, We've got a shotgun microphone or a rifle microphone, which is very directional, okay, which means we can zoom in a very narrow range to a particular sound source. Okay. So we're going to use this today for two things: doing a flyby.
Yeah, so that's you outside the car, me driving past.
Yeah, at legal speeds, and I can do a trace like that where you'll be able to hear the car going past.
Yes. Okay.
And we're also going to experiment with a rear-facing shot.
Yes.
From between the back seats headrests. Yes. So that we can get some of the exhaust in its environment. Okay. Okay. Albeit it will be quite a narrow field.
Facing, picking up the sound from the back of the car. Yeah. Yeah, in between the headrests.
And then we've got the headphones.
Yes, so that's just allowing you to listen to what the microphones are picking up, and you can get the levels and what have you.
Yeah, and that's exactly why we recorded my car, just to get a base level so that we could record yours.
That's right.
For a cold start.
For a cold start. So we did a cold start on the Jaguar, and then we did on the GTS, so you can get your twiddly knobs and make sure we've got the right settings.
Absolutely.
Perfect. That's great. Well, that's useful to know. Thank you for talking through that. Thank you for letting us use the kit as well. Let's go and get stuck in. So we've come to Goodwood, we've come to the Kennel Club car park, and we're going to use the hill up from here to the racecourse on top of the hill because it's largely straight, and we can put some load under the engine or on the engine and get some decent exhaust tone. So the first run will be everything switched off, no sport mode, no PSE on, just to see how the standard setup gear goes, and then we'll add some buttons to that, and we'll add some more combinations of exhaust and sport mode and positions of the microphone. So for the first run, we've got the microphone taped just in the center and above the exhaust tips, and we'll leave it there for the second run too. So the first one gives us our baseline, second run PSE on, same position for the mic. Let's see how we get on. So I'm going to start in second gear, just over 3,000 RPM on the tacho, and we'll give it a little blat up the hill. Good, happy with that. First run done. Nice bit of pace. Good bit of load on the engine. Let's go and put PSE on. So back at the base of the hill, sport mode is on, and sport mode automatically engages PSE. It also turns off the auto start stop. So we've got sport mode, PSE engaged, microphone centered over the tips, just out of the airflow. Second gear, off we go again. Good, so a useful second run, and hopefully we'll be able to hear some difference on the playback between everything switched off and PSE on, and crucially the microphone position, which we'll be able to compare with subsequent recordings. But for now, that's good. We're going to come down the hill in 6th gear, let the engine cool a little bit, and we're going to go and modify the microphone position now for a couple more runs. So the next microphone position is, well, you can see where it is. It's there. That is in the centre point between the two seats. And we were going to use the big directional dead cat mic, but we don't think we can sensibly or practically mount it. So this will give a similar effect. And we're going to do 2 runs with it here, one with the roof down, and then I'm going to put the roof up. So we'll get a sort of cabin roof effect, again, both with sports mode and PSE on. And that should give us enough to compare and contrast. I won't be using the camera mount for the roof up because it'll get in the way of the roof, but we'll deal with that in due course. So next run up the hill, roof down, but with the microphone in the cabin. So third run up the hill, we've got sport mode on, PSE on, same as before, and we've now got the microphone, the DPA microphone, on the bulkhead, effectively just in between the two seats. So let's see what difference that makes. Second gear, about 3,000 RPM. Let's go up the hill. Well, I don't know whether you can hear any difference, but I'm certainly having a lot of fun, and the GTS is definitely delivering. So we'll just glide back down the hill, largely coasting really, pop it into 6th, and I need to just pop the hood up for the last run. So I've mentioned the buttons a few times in this video. I thought it worth just having a very quick look at those buttons if you're not familiar with them. Here we are in the 981. This is a Boxster, but it'll be the same in a Cayman. And in fact, I think in the Macan 911 and maybe even the Panamera 2 of the period, so 2015, this car. And these are the centre console buttons, and they are based just behind, in this case, my manual lever PDK, if you've got PDK ahead of the PCM, and then the dashboard. There we go. So the ones that I've been troubling, specifically the sport mode, which is here, and the PSE here. Now the beauty of actually the way this is coded up, if you press sport, turn sport on, it automatically enables the PSE there, and it enables this function. This function is turn off auto start stop. So by enabling the function, which is to turn it off, we effectively turn off the auto start stop, but that's not been troubling us particularly on this video. But that's where it works. So you turn sport on and you get the PSE. You can in fact actually have sport off and leave PSE on independently. So you lose the throttle map and the PSM adjustments, but you leave the sports exhaust valving open. But I've actually been running it with sport to get the throttle map too. So that is how it works and what I've been doing on the console as part of this set of runs up the hill. So final run back up the Goodwood Hill. The roof's now up. We've got the microphone, as you can just see, over my left shoulder to your right camera view, and that's going to record the same setup with sport mode and the PSE on. Easing out, and we've got a clear run. Good. Okay. Super duper. Right, so sport mode is on, PSE is on, so we've had the same base settings, and I'm just coming up to the point where the road starts to climb. Second gear, about 3,000 RPM, and let's do one last run and enjoy the sound of the GTS's flat six from inside the cabin. Here we go. Pretty good, pretty good. Here we go. Yeah, I didn't anticipate that. Well, there you go, YouTube people. It pays to have your oh dear. It pays to have your camera slightly better secured than mine was. I'd say the pro tip here is that resting it on the floor doesn't cut the mustard when you're going around corners. So we're just running back down the hill now. It's a bit warm in here, to be honest. I shouldn't have got my coat on. Just going to let the engine cool down. T's and P's are pretty good. 90 on water, 93 on oil. Oil pressure 32 psi. I mean, the Boxster just laps this stuff up. Knock into 6th, 2,000 RPM, just coming down the hill, nice and light. So 4 runs. The first run with everything switched off, microphone over the exhaust tips. Second run, same placement for the microphone, but with the sport function, which gives some cracks and popples, and PSE switched on. Third run, microphone behind my left shoulder, so sort of centre of the cabin, and roof down, PSE on. And that last one we've just done, same setup with the roof up. So 4 to compare, all using a professional microphone. And I hope when we get this back in the studio and listen to it, and you in turn can listen to it, that we've got some useful differences in the sound. But for now, I'm pulling back into the car park at the Kennel Club for a cup of tea with Stephen and no doubt some more car chat. So we've been talking about microphone position quite a lot in this video, and I thought it would be worth just having a look at that in more detail. So Stephen's with us, and we've got the DPA in hand. Stephen, just remind us what model it is.
It's the DPA 4062, which is an extreme SPL sound pressure level microphone, so it can take all sorts of punishment, hence why we use it for recording cars. Perfect, brilliant. And let's just so we've done some exterior positioning, haven't we? And when we started off, actually we had it down by the tips, and we had to make a bit of a modification. It was sort of there, and it was a bit too close to the gas flow. Yes, so the gas flow literally being the air coming underneath the car and out of the exhaust. And indeed out of the exhaust. Yes, okay. And then we modified it slightly just to lift it up just a little bit. Just a bit higher. Yeah. So we did a couple of runs in that first position, realised it wasn't quite right, it was giving us quite a lot of extra noise which we didn't need. Yeah. Exactly. So the attachment, really, literally, I used some insulating tape actually, I wiped the mud off the car and stuck it on here, then we ran the cable along here and then up into the boot. Absolutely. Another couple of options would be to attach the microphone here. Yes. Or indeed here. That's right, and I've actually attached my Rode microphone to the number plate before, which works quite well. Now there's something called, I think you described as the proximity effect. Yeah, so if the microphone is too close to the body of the car, you get kind of exaggerated bass
Yeah, okay.
response.
Which is sort of not quite the same, but like having your speaker too close to the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And I know we're going to talk about that a little later when we look at the files and the recordings. Yeah, brilliant. Okay. And the alert and diffuser multi will spot that the car is wet, which means this is not quite a continuity error, but we have definitely come back and done this afterwards. But there we go. Hopefully you understand now when we talk about placing it just above the tips. That's where we've been sticking the microphone. Thanks, Stephen.
No problem.
So we've come into the studio with Stephen to actually look at the files we've recorded earlier and just to get an understanding of what the microphone picks up and whether there's some characteristics there that are desirable or undesirable that the human ear wouldn't hear or aren't representative of what we actually know the car's sounding like. So Stevie, what have we got on the screen here?
So we've got a trace, effectively, of the recording. It's the waveform of the recording.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about this is that you can see exactly when the valves open, because there's a huge differential between steady state throttle
Yes.
and then full throttle, full load, and the valves open at a particular rev point.
Yeah, and basically a lot more volume. So air pressure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we're just on the very verge of clipping, but we're not absolutely clipping.
So that's this bit here, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. So effectively, what we're doing on the left of the screen, hopefully you'll be able to see that.
Yes, that's good.
We can alter the frequency response of the recording by chopping out unwanted frequencies.
Okay.
That could be problematic. So, for example, if I was editing this for a game, I'd be looking to manipulate the recording so it makes a much better sound when combined with other recordings.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. And when we listened to the raw files a little earlier, there was, to my layperson's ears, too much bass, which we know, standing by the car as humans listening, we don't hear. So you're able to effectively dial that back, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. So if I'll show you, if I move that so you can really see it. This is frequency spectrum from 20 hertz down the bottom to 20 kilohertz.
Right, so low to high.
Yeah, exactly. So what I'm doing, this curve is changing the actual sound, so you might be able to pick this up on the microphone. So if I bypass this and just play this, this is the actual recording.
Yeah, there's the valves opening.
But then if I actually enable this, you'll see the actual frequencies changing in real time.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
So you can see some frequencies are more prominent than others.
There's the valve. Yeah, amazing. So that's getting rid of some of the stuff that we can hear in the studio that we know is not representative of the car.
So, for example, right at the very top of the frequency range,
yes,
that's where the exhaust gases are.
Ah, yes, okay.
Mainly.
So you've really knocked those back.
Yeah. So if I go to an extreme level here, so all we're hearing is the very upper ranges.
Yes,
you'll hear
the very
exactly
high
what I mean. Hardly hear anything at all at the moment. So all of this stuff is exhaust gases, really.
Yeah, gosh, that's amazing how that's totally changes it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, wow.
So we can do all sorts of manipulations, literally sculpting the sound.
Yeah.
The other thing we would do in a game, for example, is to the pops and bangs on the overrun. This bit. So we would actually, I'll just zoom in and show you very quickly what we would do. This is the actual pops and bangs bit. So we would effectively isolate that moment and chop it out.
Oh yes.
So that we could just have just this moment and use this as a particular sound. Like like that.
Yeah, okay, so you can create little snippets.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, it's just worth saying at this point that earlier on we were hoping to do a drive-by recording and also sort of the microphone in the cabin pointing backwards with the directional mic, and practically that just didn't work, did it? So that's why we haven't got those. But
yeah, far too much traffic.
Yes, too much traffic and difficult to get that microphone mounted in the car. But so it's worth also saying, I think, that what we're trying to do here is not change how the exhaust sounds for the purposes of YouTube and what a GTS engine sounds like. It's taking out the bits of the waveform that we know aren't representative, which are a consequence of recording the engine tone, not the engine tone. So all that top end sort of gassy stuff, some of the proximity effects lower down, and in fact we did we've listened to these already. There's definitely other bits and pieces that I know you're going to tweak for me. So what we should end up with is the most representative sound of the engine without actually changing how it sounds, if that makes sense. Yeah, brilliant.
The other thing to say very briefly is the fact that obviously normally we perceive the exhaust sound in its environment, so with reflections off buildings, off the road, and so on and so forth. So what you're hearing there is a very dry signal without that reflection, that reverberation.
Yeah, so there's no physical context to the, if you will. And
in a film or game context, we would just add back that effect in to be able to control it.
Yes, okay, that makes sense. As interestingly, you were saying to me that in television and film, you actually, when you see a car drive up and park and a door open in the film, you're not seeing that sound effect recorded as the car drives up. You're seeing the car driving, but the sound effects have been recorded separately because you can control the environment in which those effects are recorded. And as you said yourself, you can add them back in as layers to then manage how each layer is heard and blended. It's fascinating, isn't it? Anyway, we're slightly drifting off on Porsche exhaust here, but Stephen, thank you so much. Is there anything else we need to just note while we're here? I think we've done pretty well, haven't we?
I think we've done very well.
Yeah, excellent. Well, hopefully we'll be able to share the results of that at the end of this video. Let's crack on and I'll let you finish doing the fine tuning. Thank you very much. So there we go. Quite a lot of audio about audio. And I think the conclusion is, well, it's complicated, isn't it? Yes, you can get to within about 80–85% of what we think the car sounds like with a fairly simple microphone setup. Anything that can record sound at or close to exhaust will do. Go for a drive, put the engine under some load. But there's far more going on than meets the eye if you want to get into the detail. And as those different positions demonstrate, what we hear in the cabin isn't the same as what we can hear from the back of the car, which, as we know, also isn't what you hear as the car drives past. In the case of the GTS, we've got the Porsche Sports Exhaust, which, when you press the button, doesn't actually just open the valves and leave them open. The valves open and shut at different rev ranges, and we can hear that on some of the recordings. There's also the sound symposer. Yes, it's a thing, which is a pipe that literally takes intake sound from the engine bay into the cabin. And that opens at different speeds too, and you can hear that in places as well. And then, as Stephen mentions a moment ago, there's the context of the car's exhaust, the reverberation, the sounds from the road surface and around it as well. So lots going on. And I think what it tells me is that actually the best way to experience a car's exhaust is probably from inside the car or standing next to it as it goes past. But we'll have a crack at getting the best out of this for YouTube, and that final recording gives a pretty good impression of the flavour of the PSE or the 981 Boxster GTS. So I hope it's been something in that for you. Quite a long video, quite a deep dive, but a little bit more detail than perhaps you normally get from a YouTube video about sports exhaust. If you've enjoyed it, do give me a thumbs up. If you've enjoyed the programme as part of the series, consider subscribing to the channel as well. There's plenty more to come. I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you for watching.